Napoleon gets a lot wrong, and I don't mean historically. I'm not a historian, so I couldn't care less. It gets a lot wrong movie-wise, I mean, which is even worse. This is a movie that's very long, very fast, and completely uninvolving. A major problem, yes, but we can actually break this down a little bit further into 3 different issues, all from this one big one, to prove why I believe this falls short of its ambitions. Get it? Because Napoleon's short and ambitious?
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
But before we get into point number 1, why this isn't all it's cracked up to be, let's talk about the director, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott is one of the most famous directors in Hollywood and has a reputation for making a lot of movies and having a lot of different cuts of those movies. Blade Runner has a notorious amount of different versions, one with terrible voiceover.
That was my profession. Ex-cop. Ex-Blade Runner.
Different endings and added footage from other movies. Kingdom of Heaven is another infamously bad theatrical release with an incredible director's cut. Entire characters are cut out to reduce the runtime. It's a long movie, but a lot of it feels like it's lost in the editing room, which brings me to point number 1. A kid with toys. If you watch a kid play with their toys, like Legos or something, they often tell a full story. The hero fights the bad guys and wins, then he becomes king, then he fights more people and he wins, and then he fights a big bad guy and loses and he can't be king anymore, but he still wants to. It's the outline of a story, but it's missing the drama and the emotion that make a story really satisfying for an audience. There's no emotion behind it at all, it's just things that happen until they stop happening. Anyone, kid or adult, can bang toys together, focusing more on the fun stuff like the action. Imagine the grand and epic battle scenes in Lord of the Rings if we didn't know what they were fighting for. They would kind of be boring, no matter how cool they are.
You're soldiers of Gondor. No matter what comes through that gate, you will stand your ground.
But when it comes down to the hows and whys of why these toys are getting banged together, there's not great reasons for it. Are there reasons for these things to happen in the script? Yes, there are. Don't let me give you the wrong impression here, but we're missing the drama, the human emotion of these things. In fact, it often feels like we're getting a history lecture. Clinical and devoid of human emotion. He gets divorced because he can't have his baby. He gets remarried to have an heir. He invaded Russia because they betrayed him. That's all there, but how do the people react to these things? We either don't see it, or they just straight up don't. There's a very telling scene when Napoleon has his baby, and then it immediately cuts to him going, Russia betrayed me, let's invade them. It's insane that this moment, which ultimately leads to his downfall, is played so quickly and so rushed. It's like 10 minutes of the 2.5-hour runtime, and it's the hinge of what brings him down. Bringing me to point number 2, and one of the more interesting ones and kind of difficult to explain, the microscope. My microscope theory says in order to fully understand somebody, we need to know what decisions they're making, why they're making them, and then put a microscope up to those decisions.
We'll go to St. Petersburg and have him burn that too.
But why? Napoleon teases us with this. He goes to work, butchering people on the battlefield. He's a patient strategist who plans things thoroughly. He goes home and is kind of the same. This is where Mr. Scott turns the microscope into a telescope, trying to help us learn about him in scenes that feel like the character is kept at arm's length. When a character as important to a story as Napoleon is to this story, or Josephine is to this story, we need to put every decision they make under a microscope, so that the audience and the characters around them can better understand why the decision was made and how they came to that decision. But we don't. We almost never get that. We need people talking to them about the decisions, telling them their opinion, and them retaliating or accepting it. This can give us a good glimpse into their minds, but that rarely happens. Every decision the characters make feel like they're simply doing it because it's historically correct. There's no drama behind it or understanding. It just happens. Josephine in particular gets the short end of the stick here, and Vanessa Kirby is a capable actress who could do more with this role and seems like she wants to, but there's so much left on the table here. How does she feel towards Napoleon, and why did she cheat on him? We never get a good sense or answers to any of these questions.
I will win by fire. I am destined for greatness.
But that brings me to my final point. Point number 3, a slice of cake. It's a top 3 dessert for me. I love it. But you're not gonna take an entire cake and just gorge yourself with it in one sitting, unless you're a complete psychopath or eating for some kind of challenge. No, typically when you eat a cake, you get a nice healthy slice of it. You get that plopped onto your plate, and you have out that one slice. It's satisfying, it's not filling, but it's good. It doesn't give you a sugar rush, you don't feel like shit, it's just satisfying to have that one slice. Film should be like this too. I'm only 27, and I think that boiling my entire life down into a 2-hour runtime would be impossible. It would probably be even borderline impossible for a 3-hour runtime. There's just so much that's happened to me in these short few years. There's so much to this guy's life, and the movie proves that it's pretty much impossible to fit it all in a way that doesn't give you a sugar rush or make you feel like shit. I think it desperately needed to take a slice of this story and really dive into the details. What if we focused all of our attention on the rushed love story between him and Josephine, flesh that out, make that a feature-length film? Then it wouldn't boil down to, oh, she's hot and now we're married.
Once you see it, you will always want it.
Oh, behave.
Or we can put a microscope up to the invasion of Russia. Show the audience that he's so respected at this time, he can muster this huge army. Show his allies. Show his ambition getting the best of him, and we can witness his fall. Like I said, it's impossible to boil someone's life down into a feature-length film, so you need to take pieces of it and make a film around that piece. That way, it's so much more satisfying and filling for your audience to leave the theater knowing that particular moment from front to back, instead of knowing broad details of the roadmap to this person's life. I don't want to have a history lesson for a movie. I want to know people. I want to understand people. And I feel like all we got here was a history lesson.